Good evening. My name is Dominique Martin, and today I will be discussing what corporal punishment is, the different types of corporal punishment, examples, and stories from myself from corporal punishment. And I also will be discussing facts to why corporal punishment is such a big issue in today's society. Corporal punishment or child abuse. How can one determine the severity of corporal punishment before it turns into child abuse? When did someone ever make a chart that determines where someone stands when disciplining a child? Is there a strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree chart that we place everyone? Like, oh, I strongly agree that they're using corporal punishment. Or I strongly agree that they're using child abuse. I'm going to discuss and explain what corporal punishment is to a certain extent. Corporal punishment is a type of physical punishment that in fact causes pain to a child or person for an offense that they have done. Corporal punishment hurts. Being spanked hurts. Being whooped, beaten, whatever we know, call it corporal punishment, it hurts. The sole purpose for corporal punishment is to discipline someone for their wrongdoings or wrong acts. When I think of corporal punishment, I think of classical conditioning. Classical conditioning meaning if someone do something wrong or they do something bad, pain, corporal punishment will be inflicted. So the next time they consider or think about doing something bad, they remember bad doings and they'll incorporate with corporal punishment. So they would know that if they do something bad, corporal punishment is right around the corner. It's going to come. You're not going to miss it. There are mainly 3 different types of corporal punishment. You have parental or domestic corporal punishment, educational or school corporal punishment, and judicial corporal punishment. Parental or domestic corporal punishment is typically involved in the family, whether that's your parents, legal guardian, aunts, uncles, maybe even older cousins if given permission. You can even bring it to babysitters or just anyone who parent gave them permission to use corporal punishment. When dealing with a parental or domestic corporal punishment, I mainly look at knowing right from wrong, and if you do wrong, you get a spanking. I remember when I was younger, I touched the hot stove. I was always told, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove. And me, being the child that I was, I decided to touch the stove. But I knew by me doing what I was told not to do, there was going to be consequences involved. And when I touched the hot stove, I got a whooping. So next time I know, oh, I'm not going to touch the stove. My mama told me not to touch it. So I'm not going to touch it because I know a spanking or whooping would be coming behind. Classical conditioning. Now I know touching the stove, when it's hot, oh, that's a whooping coming. I just know it goes hand in hand. So I believe that corporal punishment and parental domestic corporal punishment is okay if you're not inflicting so much pain that your child will end up in the ER or you're causing injuries to your child. I believe corporal punishment is okay. But I honestly do not agree with educational or school corporal punishment. Educational or school corporal punishment is when a teacher, a principal, or someone an authority figure in the school building uses corporal punishment or spanking, inflicts pain to a child for their wrongdoings, misbehaving, or doing what they're told not to do. I do not believe that it's okay for someone to put their hands on another person's child. Mainly because you do not know how a person is raised. You do not know how they're brought up. The way you were raised and the way they were raised may not be the same. So they may not know what your rules are because their rules are completely different. So I just do not agree with it. But it is a proven fact that in the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, and beyond that, be going down, education rates were higher. People were respecting their authorities more. People had a type of fear, not a, oh, I'm scared of them, but a respecting fear of authorities and school figures from using corporal punishment. I'm not necessarily saying that corporal punishment is the reason why all of these rates are high than they are now. But if you have someone who's going to discipline you instead of suspending you or kicking you out of a school as discipline, and they're being there for you and helping you out, I believe that it's like a second chance. They're allowing the person to realize what they did was wrong and bringing them back in and teaching them right from wrong. Lastly, you have judicial corporal punishment. I agree with judicial corporal punishment to an extent. I agree with it if you are using it the right way. I don't agree with a person who uses judicial corporal punishment and abuse their authority with it. If you're going to beat someone or nag and entice a person because you're in a higher position than they are, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with someone you're going to whoop or beat someone because they didn't get in their jail cell right when you asked them to or right when you told them to. I don't agree with that. Judicial corporal punishment is when you use or you entice and inflict pain on someone for their wrongdoings, and is usually a law authority or court law authority figures who is inflicting the pain on the person. As I mentioned before, I only agree with it if you're using it the right way. In today's society, corporal punishment is looked at as child abuse to a certain extent, because corporal punishment can seriously turn into physical abuse immediately. Corporal punishment teaches children that violence is an acceptable way with dealing with issues. That, oh, he did this, so I'm going to beat him because he shouldn't have did that. Corporal punishment teaches children that it is okay to use violence against someone you love. I know my parents or my mom told me, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. I never understood because I was the one getting the whooping and she wasn't. But it just shows that if you love someone and they're doing something wrong, oh, I'm going to whoop them so they can show, so I can tell them that I love them and they need to stop doing what they're doing, or they're going to continue to get beat or get a whooping. Corporal punishment makes children more aggressive towards other children. I don't know if I agree with that fact totally, because I just honestly do not agree with it, because just because you're receiving corporal punishment does not make you aggressive towards other children. Granted, you are receiving the corporal punishment, I just do not agree with that fact. Children who are exposed to violence are more likely to be violent as an adult, because if you're being exposed to violence, you think or you assume that it's okay for you to inflict violence or for you to have violence in your life because you were taught and you were brought up that way. Corporal punishment does not teach children the reason why their behavior was wrong. I don't necessarily think it teaches them the behavior that's wrong. As I mentioned before, it's classical conditioning. It shows them that this will happen if you do this. Corporal punishment can affect self-esteem by making the victim feel scared and ashamed, sad, or worthless. I necessarily do not agree with that. I think it shows that if you do this, this is going to happen. I feel like it's more of a self-esteem kind of thing. Like, I know that I did something wrong and I'm going to get in trouble for it. Corporal punishment can destroy the relationship between a child and the child parents or caregiver. Yes, it can. It really can. If it's been inflicted the wrong way. If they're being punished and corporal punishment is in the situation and they don't know why they're getting beat, then it can definitely really inflict in their relationship. Well, that's my presentation, and thank you. Also, I do believe that corporal punishment and child abuse can go hand in hand. It's a kind of a touchy topic, as I mentioned earlier. We never know who's going to be right or who's wrong when dealing with corporal punishment. And I feel like it's all up to you to decide whether or not you want to use corporal punishment. But just remember that corporal punishment is to only inflict pain, not to cause injury, not to send someone to the ER or bleed because of that. It's just a disciplinary way. In fact, that there are other ways to discipline a child, as of going to timeouts, taking things away from them, removing them from situations. Is just corporal punishment is just another form of disciplining a person or a child. Thank you.